it to make it.
I'm gonna ask you questions.
Oh, okay, good.
Have anything in my teeth?
Yeah, it's like I'm thinking about this. It's like we're gonna celebrate our 20-year anniversary this year. So this is like, 21 years ago that we got engaged.
I met my wife through a coworker about 7 years ago.
We met online.
Bartending in college.
Online, we were both kind of over dating.
We both worked for ASU Athletics.
We actually met through a dating service.
We were working together at TGI Fridays.
He was president of his fraternity, and I had been invited to some day, probably party or thing.
I sent him a wink, which he'll never let me live down, that I technically made the first move.
We probably worked together for 2 weeks without speaking to each other. But every time I saw her, I was like, she's a pretty girl. Yeah. Oh, that's her. Excuse me.
Honestly, don't think I had a single impression of him. Not that he wasn't cute and charismatic.
When we first met, I fell in love pretty quick because I just loved how comfortable we were together.
Pretty sure we both felt the same way. Kind of felt like timing wasn't right.
I could tell he was smart. He had a good sense of humor.
So one day I finally got the courage to, say hi. So we're in the back and I kind of just looked over at her and I was like, you have the most beautiful smile I've ever seen. That was all that could come out of my mouth, and I kind of ducked and covered after that. I kind of turned around. She kind of pulled this little sneaky line. She was like, oh, hey, I got a new number, you should probably take it.
We were gonna go to the Minnesota State Fair, and I had gone downtown to get my hair done. And I ended up getting a flat tire on the way home. And I somehow got a hold of him and said, hey, I don't know if I can make it, I got a flat tire. And he's like, well, what does your car look like again? And I told him, and he actually came in right behind me. He had a white car, so a knight in shining armor, white car, and he changed my tire and we got to go out on our date. That kind of started to seal it right there.
We dated for about 1.5 years before I decided to pop the question.
A little over 3 years.
Just over 1.5 years.
About 2 years, 5 or 5.5 years.
5 years.
7 years.
At about the 6 to 8 year mark, because we had been dating for 6 to 8 years.
Dating for 1.5 years, everything was so perfect, it was so wonderful. Yeah, we had problems from time to time, but they were so minor and we would just kind of get over them that I realized she was the one for me and I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her.
I've been probing him. I also have 2 older sisters. He has a sister, our mothers. Everyone was like, when is this gonna happen?
It was a mutual decision. We both were ready to be married again, honestly.
We had talked about it, and then the conversation started getting a little bit more serious as we got a little bit older. I think we were both kind of just ready to go to the next step.
She had told me if I ever propose, she wants her family there. And it just so happened that it was summertime, we were doing a family vacation with her family, and I decided this would be the perfect opportunity to ask her to marry me.
Todd actually proposed on Mother's Day. I'm not a mom yet, but we were at one of our favorite restaurants and we were meeting all of our families. I noticed that he was a little nervous for Mother's Day brunch, and he was ordering quite a few cocktails.
My fiance didn't ask my mother or my father for their permission. He was already a part of my family. Like I said, we had been dating for, 9 years, not 10 years. Semantics. If we didn't get married, I think people would be a lot more upset than him proposing without asking permission.
I knew I wanted to get a ring. We had a trip planned. I'm gonna do it on this trip. I go ring shopping. I had no idea where to even start. I know her taste, kind of.
So I reached out to a friend of mine who works in kind of custom jewelry. I had a ring custom designed for her. With getting the custom ring, it had to be shipped to me. And unfortunately, that aligned with the time that we were flying to Hawaii for the summer vacation. So I actually had to have the ring shipped to Hawaii, where I would get it there at our hotel.
So it all went down in Rome on a very sunny day in July. And it was actually our second day in Rome, and he asked me if his friend who was stationed in Rome could come hang out with us for the day, and I was a little miffed.
He devised this plan with our roommate that we were gonna go to an amusement park. I'm not a huge amusement park person, and I do not like roller coasters.
It was Christmas Eve, and I think it was his plan to propose on kind of in a nice romantic area on a hike.
So we started strolling down this golf course area, and he just walked right out into the middle of the green, and I'm like, what are you doing? You're not supposed to be out there.
Very non-traditional. He did get down on one knee. He actually proposed to me with a bell for my bike instead of a traditional engagement ring.
We had done a European vacation before. Our whole thing was like we didn't want to bring roller suitcases. We were going 6 different places. We've pre-planned, we've pre-packed, and half of her stuff is now in my bag. So I'm like, where's this ring gonna go? How am I not gonna lose it?
And the ring showed up at the hotel. I was able to get it. And then you've got the ring and you've got to hide it. You've got to do everything you can to where she doesn't see it because you don't want anyone to know what's happening.
There was one particular week where I just felt like something was going on. My mom and dad were both in town visiting. My best friend was acting weird. My mom was acting weird.
Got a pair of like boxers and I cut like a slit in like the waistband and like wrapped the ring up in like this little Ziploc bag, and then I like just stuffed it in there and put it at like the bottom, like the very bottom of my bag. But then we get to the airport and I'm standing in the security line. This thought comes into my mind. I said, what if this thing goes off in the metal detector?
So the night finally comes where I'm going to propose, and my plan is we're gonna do it at sunset on the beach. Family's gonna be watching. I ask her, hey, let's go take a walk at sunset. It was pretty magical and picturesque, but I'm so nervous.
He had heard of a place by the Coliseum that you could go to a bar and watch the sunset and have a beer, and he really wanted to do that. We had had a couple of drinks and I really needed to go to the bathroom. But I'm like, okay, well, let's just go anywhere. It doesn't matter. We're at the Coliseum, we're in Rome, it's beautiful.
And we were hiking. He thought he was ready to propose, so he had the ring in his pocket. He reached for it in his pocket. He proceeded to attempt to get down on one knee, and it just so happens at that exact moment I uttered something like, this is the most depressing thing I've ever seen, because there had been a forest fire and there were trees down and charred. It was just kind of a sad scene from a forest fire. So he quickly dropped the ring back in his pocket and got up, and then kind of internally, I'm sure, freaked out.
His plan was to have the alarm go off at like 5 in the morning and have it be like a beautiful song, like a romantic song.
He convinces me to go on this roller coaster. We're starting to go up the hill, and he looked at me and he said, I love you. Will you marry me?
Go through security, bag goes through, nothing goes off, and I get through, and it was like almost this relief, but at the same time, I was like, I still have to like carry this thing around Europe.
I don't know what happened with the alarm clock, but instead it was the buzzer alarm clock. So at 5 o'clock in the morning, I wake up to and I'm like, what is that noise?
I said, what? I said, you're asking me to marry you on a roller coaster? And I looked at him, I said, where's the ring? And he's like, well, I don't have it with me. And I'm like,
We were in Rome at this time. It was like day 6 of our trip. Everyone was like taking pictures of this fountain. I pulled my camera, my phone out, and I set it on video. Went to this lady, and I said, I'm gonna ask if you can take a picture. Can you like just hit the button? It's gonna be a video, it's not gonna be a picture. And she was like confused, but I was already committed.
All I can think of is, I've got this ring in my pocket. Hopefully there's not a hole in my shorts that it's fallen out of. We take this long walk. It's getting awkward, it's getting uncomfortable because we're just standing there for no reason. And I say something along the lines of, I would, it was something stupid. It was something like, oh, I just want, this moment to last forever. And she was like, what?
He had gone out on the deck. He had found a lot of tea lights in the cabin. He was just scrambling at this moment. He lit all the tea lights around the deck, and it was just really pretty, and it had started to snow.
So we take a photo and I'm like, great, let's go, because again, had to go to the bathroom. And he was like, no, come here, pull me back, one more. Then I'm looking at the Coliseum and I noticed that he puts his hand in his pocket, and I was like, oh
He walks in the room and he comes over to his side of the bed and he shuts it off. Then he gets down on his knee, like on the side of the bed, and I had just woken up. I can't even remember everything he said. It was really sweet.
I had shown up at his condo for us to go on a bike ride. He got down on one knee and handed me the bell, and it was funny and it was sweet and unexpected.
And he had asked if I would come outside, and so again, unfortunately, I had changed for bed. I had to put on this big winter coat, but I came out, I turned the corner, and I saw this beautiful just display of candles, and I realized this is happening, and it was just perfect. And it had started to snow, and he got down on one knee and proposed, and I don't think either of us really remember what each other said. I said yes, but unfortunately I was wearing these, so.
You know, we get there ready for the picture. I have the ring in one hand. I'm shaking like a leaf on a tree. She takes the picture, and then I just dropped down on one knee, and then I think I said something along the lines of, "Will you marry me?"
He got down on one knee and he proposed right then and there, so I was really surprised. And the rest of the family was really upset because they were all just there. But what was neat was we were leaving the next day for our cruise, so we kind of got to celebrate that engagement for the whole week, just the two of us.
Did the whole roller coaster thing. We got off, found our friend, and she had the ring in her pocket. She was holding on to it.
Decided after attaching the bell to my bike that we had to break it in, obviously, so we went on a bike ride and then had some dinner.
I pull the ring out of my pocket, I get down on the one knee, give her the ring, say, you know, will you marry me? She immediately starts crying. She's so excited, she's so surprised. Put the ring on, she says yes, and we walk back and we celebrate with the families.
I didn't remember anything that he said to me in the moment at all, but it was really sweet, and of course I said yes. His friend took the picture and video, which that's why he was really there on the second day, was to catch it all on camera. So sneaky.
I think my engagement story is pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. It was a special moment and a special time and a special place.
We didn't call family and friends. We just sort of enjoyed ourselves. I did tell my family eventually, obviously, but it was just sort of like our evening is how it felt.
I do like my engagement story. Yeah. I mean, I would love to have gone to Paris, but you know what? The roller coaster was really a great metaphor even for how life has gone.
It's relaxed and it's got a little humor to it.
Yeah, I was like super stoked. I didn't have that ring to carry around anymore, and enjoyed the rest of the trip.
Looking back now, I'm like, it was really sweet. It's really funny. It is totally us.
And the ring fit. I don't know how he got a ring that fit. I have really fat fingers and he figured it out somehow.
So it was a really magical moment. There was a lot of stress and pressure on me, and I feel like towards the end, she was kind of getting the hint of like what was about to happen. Thankfully, she didn't ever really know, and it was a surprise. So immediately we're calling people, telling friends, family, we're engaged, and then immediately it's like, when are you getting married? What's the plan for the wedding? And at that point, I just had enough.
Okay. Thank you so much. Great job. Great job.